Welcome to the Star Wars Canon Cantina, a show where we try to answer the question, who is Luke Skywalker before the release of Star Wars Episode 9? My name is Jesse, and I'm here with my Star Wars best friend, Mike. And today, we've got a really big bookend on this series, the Thrawn series. It's a book called The Last Command. How's it going today, Mike?
I'm doing pretty well. We've been leading up to this for a couple weeks now. We've been kind of deep into like the story recap and everything, but I'm excited for the story to wrap up so we can do some actual like deep dives into this Luke versus the Luke we've seen on screen.
Yeah, and you say pretty good. You guys at home, I'm not sure if you've picked up on, but this has been an interesting series for me, Mike and I, because first of all, it's really thick books and 3 weeks of that back to back. But I've basically been sick, Mike, for 3 weeks, and you had a bout of sickness too there in the middle.
That's right. I fought off the rat ghoul plague, is what I've decided
Yeah.
to call what happened to me.
That's what I feel like I still got. And if I sound like I was on death's door last episode, it's because I was, but I made it through, and I'm over the hill. The rat ghoul plague is leaving my body, or I'm turning into a rat ghoul, and it's fully complete.
Either way, it should make for interesting radio.
Yeah, certainly. And other things have been going on with us. By the time you guys are listening to this, Halloween have just happened, and obviously the weekend before Halloween, there was a lot of costume-oriented things going on, and my wife and I went to a party, and we did some solo costumes, like.
Yeah, the pictures you sent me were great.
Yeah, I went. I guess what you can call maybe not cosplay level, but screen accuracy level. Han.
I think it would qualify under cosplay level. I'd see that at a con and be like, oh hey, yeah, that guy's putting effort in.
Yeah, the true irony is I had everything cosplay level except the blood stripe, and then I ordered the blood stripe a month or two ago. It just took so long to get here, so I was going to sew it on, but didn't happen.
Did he have the blood stripe in Solo?
He does. It's very muted. It's the red blood stripe. So Solo, he's got an interesting, Han. We got Han with the brown pants and the yellow blood stripe, and we got the blue pants with the red blood stripe. So I don't know if you know this, Mike, but Solo, it's so dark. It looks like Han's wearing black pants in the movie.
That's what I was going to say. Sort of all the colors are muted a little bit. And so
but he's
everything except for Lando's Tommy Bahama shirt at the end of the movie is pretty muted.
At the end. Yeah, that shirt is excellent. But Han's actually wearing the navy trousers, as in double entendre there, I guess. The Imperial Navy colored trousers with the red blood stripe thing going down the side, so it's just very subtle. Yeah, I honestly thought they were black the first couple times I saw the movie because his shirt's black.
I still thought they were black. Get your stuff together, Ron Howard. Learn to be a director. God.
Yeah, make it that moody movie. But so that's what I did, and my wife wore a amazing Chewbacca dress that was actually a bigger hit than my costume, despite the screen accuracy, because a Chewbacca dress is just amazing. And so that was a really fun time. I also had the dice and some Sabacc cards in my jacket that I just periodically give to people. So
nice.
it was fun. It was a fun time. And, I've been actually wearing that jacket for months. So it's fun to actually use it for a costume. So,
that's awesome. So we're actually recording this on the 30th. Tomorrow is Halloween, and me and my wife, we're not doing Star Wars costumes, but we're keeping it in the Disney family. We've got our almost 18-month-old dressed up as Mickey Mouse, and this is like a deep dive for the Disney nerds out there. Her and I are going as Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and his girlfriend Hortensia. You should just sort of Google that stuff if you don't know.
That's too deep for me, Mike. I recognize their names. I can't think of them off the top of my head, though.
It's basically the character that Walt created before Mickey Mouse was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And they made some so-so video games about him. But yeah, that's who we're going as, keeping it all in the Disney family.
Disney family, Star Wars, Disney are conjoined forever now. Well, very good. So that's and I hope you guys enjoyed our spooky stuff last episode, and you got to enjoy some of the spooky stuff about Star Wars with us. But today we've got a lot of last command stuff to get through. This is the third book in the Thrawn trilogy, of course, written by Timothy Zahn and released in 1993.
One book a year, 91, 92, 93.
That's right. I wonder how long he was working on these before, how many years he was working on before the actual release of Air.
That is a good question
sometime.
that I'm sure has been answered somewhere out there on the internet, and we probably should have Googled before we started this.
Whoops. What's interesting, Mike, is these books are coming up on, in a couple of years, they'll be 30 years old.
Good Lord.
So these, not only are these older than the prequels, like we've said many times, but I mean, they're older than a lot of people alive. So
they might be older than you, listener.
Yeah, it's great. So a lot of history here, and this is a good finish to this series, and we really hope you guys enjoy this journey with us as we dive deep today. And let's just get right to our Luke stuff, our Luke questions. If you guys followed us last week, we might have caught you a bit off guard as we talked about 15 episodes in. We're going to add some more Luke questions, fill some of these out, and so let's go over some of these. I'll read some. What state is Luke in at the beginning of this story?
Yeah, so that's one of our original questions that we kept. Definitely helps when we're jumping back and forth with our episodes between Legends and Canon. And we've tried to flesh things out a little bit with some of these new questions, like how do Luke's interactions with the main cast contribute to his growth? Main cast being Han, Leia, Chewie, Lando, the droids.
Right.
Pretty much them.
Yeah. And do any villains or side characters in this story significantly contribute to Luke's development? Absolutely so in this series and hopefully future series. So that's going to be something we're going to look at. And also, how does Luke grow in the Force? This is what we've always coined as leveling up. What sort of techniques is Luke using the Force that we've never seen before?
Yeah, we always talked about that, but we figured we'd kind of shine some extra attention on it. We also just want to find out, what does Luke learn in the story beyond the Force, either about himself or about his friends, the main cast, or lessons in general? What does he learn anything in the story that might not always apply?
And our last question here for Legends, which I really like: would Luke's experiences in the story make him different from the Luke we meet in The Last Jedi? And it's obviously a very important question.
All right, let's get to it.
Ever since Luke disappeared, people have been looking for him.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
A lot of rumors, stories.
And I became a legend.
People that knew him best.
Luke. Young Skywalker. Luke.
It's all true.
I am a Jedi. Like my father before me.
All of it.
Okay, so our story starts off, if you guys remember, Thrawn winning a battle against the New Republic, where he basically took most of the Katana fleet and built up his entire war fleet, just everything with all these new ships. And then we're revealed at the end that Thrawn has clones, and he is filling these ships with clones to man them, and our heroes are in trouble. That's where we left off last time.
That's right. So just a quick summary of what Thrawn's overall tactical plan, in case you have missed it in the past couple episodes. He's basically found the Katana fleet, which is 200 dreadnoughts, and he's taken more than 150 of them. It was something like only 15 left to the New Republic or something. Yeah. He's taken most of them, and he's found old cloning technology, basically, that the Emperor had kept hidden away. So he has clone troopers to run these ships. So he's trying to distribute these clones to different fleets throughout the galaxy, and this all of a sudden the Imperial Remnant fleet has grown like exponentially and is now able to push attacks on multiple fronts against the New Republic.
Yeah, and they're hitting the New Republic from everywhere, and they're doing these quick strikes and then disappearing, and it's really interesting, Mike. This is an interesting parallel with where the Imperials are now. They're more like the rebellion during the Empire era. So
that's right. And the other key to Thrawn's plan that we haven't seen play out to its fullest effect yet is he's also come into possession of like small ship cloaking technology. Basically, this is a quick way to put that. Yeah.
Yeah, he can sneak ships in and do all kinds of crazy things with flanking and getting payloads into the middle of battles when people don't know about them and stuff, which is interesting. So that's where we kind of start off, and then immediately we're led into basically Sabayoth being crazy like he is, hunting Leia, and because he wants her children still, the unborn twins. And that's where Han and Leia are, and they actually make it out with the help of Rogue Squadron, which is cool. But then, of course, we go right to Luke.
Who is
Luke
starting off?
Cool.
Yeah, he's starting off better than a lot of other stories that we've talked about. He's not recovering from injuries or stranded in a jungle. He's pretty much on a mission. He's on the planet Burchest, looking for these clones, trying to track these clone like shipment or travel paths, trying to figure out their point of origin. Because the at the end of the second book, Dark Force Rising, the New Republic did become aware that, oh crap, he has clones. That's how he's pulling this off, by having all these dreadnoughts that require so many crew members.
Right. So we got Luke on a kind of solo mission, which is cool. And he's trying to find the tech, like, because they just still don't fully understand how this has happened, you know? At the meantime, we go back to Mara, and Mara, if you guys remember from the last book, was injured during the battle for the Katana fleet, and she's actually been recovering on Coruscant for about a month. So she's missed a lot. She's been kind of in a coma state.
She was so pissed when she woke up and realized a month had gone by.
Yeah, and that she was at the headquarters for the New Republic, and that she also was somewhere where she had a lot of vested history, of course, on Coruscant, where she was worked for the Emperor. But what's really interesting in this story is Mara's introduced to Leia and Leia's kind of family and extended family a lot in this. So Leia and Leia's aide, Winter, are the ones who basically greet Mara when she wakes up and after all the hijinks earlier.
Winter, Targeter, whatever you want to call her.
Yeah, Mara knows that name, which is interesting because they both were secret agents for the Empire back in the day.
Wait, Targeter wasn't an Imperial agent. She was a Rebel Alliance agent.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Like, she was like, you're one of the agents I was trying to catch.
Yeah, there we go. They were working against each other. That's right.
Yeah, spy versus spy.
Yeah, so on the planet Burchest, Luke runs into a lot of people. Not now. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Some people's favorite character. I used to like him until I saw how he's portrayed in these comics. Talon Card basically is like, oh, hey, I happen to be everywhere important, and I know that you're Luke Skywalker, and we should get out of here.
Right. Well, because they obviously have history, right? Because Luke and Talon captured Luke in the first book, then Luke escaped from him, and then Talon saves them at the end of the first book, right? And then Mara comes to Luke in Dark Force Rising and says, you owe him a debt. Help me rescue him from Thrawn because you owe him at least that. And Luke agrees to that. And once again, we see Luke and Talon meeting up, this time on this mission, right? And, obviously Talon's the centerpiece of this trilogy. I think is what you're saying.
More so than I remembered. Talon and Mara both actually are much larger characters in this story than I remembered. Like this, which it makes sense. These are the books they get introduced in. These are play bigger characters. Parts than I remember.
And then, so at this point, Luke and Talon track the clones to the Inner Rim on a planet called Podoris, I believe, if I pronounce it. And the Imperials actually find Luke there, and they try to capture Luke with troopers and the Ysamari, the lizards that block the Force, or push back on the Force. And what's really interesting is Luke finds a gap in the Ysamari, like what they're projecting. He can actually feel where the Force is being pushed back for them. And he actually kind of force jumps away and gets away on a roof. And I thought that was kind of interesting. He can kind of visualize the gap, if that makes sense.
So, sort of like he can detect where his radar blind spots are.
Yeah, yeah. So, but basically Luke gets away, and I think what's important. so Luke's being hunted by the whole planet at this point, and he actually goes undercover and he gets off the planet, and he almost gets caught by the Chimera as he's leaving the planet. Thrawn's waiting for him, but he jumps to hyperspace.
Well, in this escape is actually a pretty interesting part, because Luke it does not leave the planet in his X-wing.
No.
Oh, come on, computer. There we go. His X-wing is basically docked with another ship that gets attacked by the Chimera. And as it's being destroyed, Luke hops into the cockpit and flies out of the ship that's being destroyed and quickly jumps into hyperspace.
Yeah. Which we have seen in Star Wars before, but this might have been one of the earlier instances of it. Obviously now we've got even stuff in the movies. We've got escape pods, and we've even the front section of the Falcon, obviously they can detach, but this is kind of a different situation where we have two ships docked together and split before it blows up, which is kind of fun.
And this stuck out to me because Thrawn was on the Chimera attempting to shoot down that ship that he was pretty sure Luke was on. And he was impressed by the way Luke pulled off that maneuver of escaping the exploding ship. And instead of pulling a traditional Imperial move of punishing the underling who let the hero get away, he actually ends up promoting the tractor beam officer who had tried a different tactic. I forget how he ended up. By shifting the tractor beam into sheer plane mode, whatever that means. He ended up promoting that, pit officer
for thinking on his feet.
Yeah, for thinking on his feet and trying to creatively solve this problem. And he does this in front of the bridge crew. And there's a thought where Pelion says, after today, the crew would die for him. At last, I can see that a new empire has been born.
Very good. Yeah, and there's even some internal and external dialogue with Thrawn where he's basically saying, I'm not going to be a Vader. Like, I'm not going to punish or kill people when the Empire needs them.
Although he kind of was in Dark Force Rising. We didn't talk about it specifically last week, but this scene where he promotes the guy for being creative is in stark contrast to where he kills a guy for really screwing up in Dark Force Rising.
Kills him?
Yeah, Thrawn doesn't kill him. He has Rook kill him. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But that was a big screw up. You're right. What's interesting is Luke gets away here, and Luke realizes his X-Wing is running out of fuel. It's running out of power cells, charging basically. And he checks all the nearby systems, and what do you know? Honoghr, the Nogri homeworld that Leia spent all that time in the last book in, that we kind of glossed over. Luke actually goes there.
Well, and this is hilarious in the comic version, which is what I read recently.
That's right.
There's an actual speech bubble. I've got a better idea. Let's go visit the Nogri with an exclamation mark and everything.
Luke does not say that in the book. Luke's like, they might kill me. Should we even do this, R2? And, they first turn Luke away, but he basically puts on his best Leia act. And he says, I am the son of your Lord Vader. I am the brother of Leia Organa, Lady Vader, and I need help basically. And they reluctantly let him land.
This whole Nogri subplot is my least favorite thing upon revisiting it. Honestly, it hasn't aged well, and it's
so important to the plot.
It absolutely is, but it's also just not presented well in the comics either.
That's probably a big part of it. Yeah, I really like their storyline because I like that. It paints a really strong picture of the Empire, like what the Empire was like. You know what I mean? And like how we talked about before, Mike, on the last two episodes, how the Empire had them in basically indentured slavery without them knowing it. And the Empire was actually poisoning their land and keeping the Nogri under this, starving, always groveling state. And the Nogri just assumed the planet was ruined from the battle. The planet actually did recover. We didn't mention that last time. And the Empire's been poisoning it all this time. And that Leia helps them figure that out. So they do help Luke because they have respect for him, but they don't know what to think about him at first, especially with the Vader context and things like that. But he actually doesn't spend a ton of time here.
No, he doesn't. But it is important to note that he starts the story away from the main cast. He goes to Honegger alone. He actually spends more time away from the main cast in this book than I remembered.
Right, especially compared to the first and second book of this series. What's interesting, he does spend some time on Honegger because the ship needs to charge. He does meet Kabarak, the guy who facilitated everything with Leia, and Luke rests on Honegger, and he has this Force vision. He has a vision of Leia and the twins being in danger, and that kind of starts off the beginning of the end with the rest of the Force plots in this, I guess you want to call it that.
Yeah. So while that is happening, there are some other side stories that we're not going to go into too much detail on. But basically, Thrawn is advancing on New Republic territory on multiple fronts.
Right.
They are losing systems quickly.
Leia has the twins. 10 hours of labor with Han.
Leia actually does have the twins. That's right. That's like the last page of the first issue of the comic here.
Yeah, and she senses them through the Force, which is cute. And one of them touches back to her with the Force, and I'm assuming it's Jason. I'm not sure, but one of them does.
That detail didn't make the comic.
But so that happens too, and you're right. Thrawn is the New Republic is in a bad state, and their leadership kind of gets in disarray as well because they're having disagreements, as we discussed in the earlier two books, on how to deal with Thrawn. Is he a real threat? Borsphalia actually starts coming around on the idea of Thrawn because now even we have General, the Corellian general from the last book, Belobus.
Garm Beliblis is back. And they are, they're presented with tactile proof that, oh, hey, we've lost 3 sectors in 10 days or whatever it is. This guy is actually a threat. And Thrawn eventually makes his way at the prodding of his mustache twirling villain Jedi master Jimmy C. What's his real name?
George Sabayoth.
Yeah, Jimmy C. Makes his way to Coruscant.
That's right. So this is a new Force power. I'm going to mention it when we see it. I mean, new-ish, but Sabayoth is basically, he's fed up with Thrawn and Peli, and he's like, you guys promised me if I joined your new empire that I would have the twins, that I would be, in charge of all these Jedi, and none you've failed. Your commanders have failed. I'm taking control of this fleet right now. And he basically does a Kylo Ren freeze sort of thing, and he freezes all the men on the ship with their hands on their controls. They can't move, and they're all just looking at Thrawn. He freezes everyone but Thrawn.
Because Thrawn always has the Ysalamiri around him whenever he's near Jimmy C.
And Jimmy C is like, we are going to Coruscant right now. I want my Jedi. And Thrawn's like, that's fine. and Sabayoth is actually taken aback by that. He was expecting a lot of opposition from Thrawn. And he's like, but the trip to Coruscant will take us 5 days. And you sure going to maintain this crew of thousands of men through your mind for 5 days. So he's kind of calling his bluff, but what's interesting with this is Thrawn just agrees, says, yeah, let's attack Coruscant if that's what you want to do. In this state, Thrawn already had this planned because he knew Jimmy C was going to eventually come to this conclusion. And Pelian's kind of in shock because, like Watson always is, he's like, why are you letting this...
he is Watson to
why are you letting this villain work you, Thrawn, basically is what he's saying. And Thrawn's like, oh, don't worry. This is going to all be... I've got this... I foresaw this happening, and I've set things in motion for Jimmy C to be happy, and we'll kind of trick him right now, basically. So Jimmy C is kind of in charge of the Imperial fleet at this moment.
Jimmy C thinks he's in charge of the fleet. Yeah. And
Thrawn mustn't think that.
Thrawn is letting him think that as a means to his own end.
Meanwhile, this is going on. Mara gets captured by the New Republic because they find out she was actually an Imperial spy back in the day, that she was the Emperor's hand, and they don't like that. And I thought another interesting part here. Yeah, very reasonable. So they lock her up, and so she comes out of her coma, they lock her up. Now, I found a really interesting plot point here. Leia actually bonds with Mara during this time, and Leia goes to Luke and says, I don't know what to do. Mara's locked up by the New Republic, and clearly she's not bad. And what's really interesting is they all come to the conclusion that Luke and Han and Lando just need to rescue Mara and break her out of a New Republic jail, basically, which is borderline treason.
Right. And,
but it's
all
the right
of this
thing
is
to do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because the comic wasn't always super clear on where things were happening. But they're all on Coruscant at this point, right? Because that's where Leia had the kids and where Mara was held up and everything.
Right. And Mara gives Leia the crucial piece of information, which is Thrawn has clones. I know that for sure. And Leia says, are you sure? That's just been a rumor. And she goes, no, he has clones, and I'm pretty sure they come from a planet called Wayland.
Which, I mean...
Because I've been
Leia.
there with
Leia.
I've been there with Palpatine.
Leia, trust Han. He saw the clones. So did Luke. But Mara did give them the location of Mount Tantus, the Emperor's storehold on Wayland.
Yeah, and Thrawn's using this accelerated rate to make clones, and they don't know how that's happening either.
Yeah,
all they know is
instead of what, like a year and a half to create a clone, they were doing it in like 10 to 15 days, I think is what Talon was, crazy. Or somebody was filling someone in about it. So the comic presentation of this story is pretty bad. It's like blurry characters with walls and walls of text bubbles going back and forth.
That sucks.
Yeah, like I get what they're going for, trying to translate all the details of the story to 6 comic issues. That's difficult. They didn't even do. Could have done with a few more pages and a few more, like visual cues or whatever.
Well, I found a really interesting part of this point in the book. So Luke and Han and Lando do rescue Mara. They break her out of this jail, facing potential treason because, they're breaking her out of their own jail of the New Republic. But what's really interesting is this kind of starts turning Mara around on her I have to kill Luke Skywalker thing. And we haven't mentioned this yet, but Mara, of course, like the first 2 books, is still being plagued by these dark force visions of Palpatine telling her to kill Luke. And she's having these visions, more like dreams, of Luke and Vader actually physically killing Palpatine together with their lightsabers. And Palpatine screaming at her, you must kill Luke Skywalker and save me. And she's plagued with this. And what's really interesting is Luke comes and saves her out of this prison. Yet again, Luke helps her, despite her saying, I want to kill you. And that just perplexes her. And what really perplexes her this time is not Luke's sense of good and saving her, but his sense in Mara knowing the location of the clones is more important than even treason. And she says, Luke, Luke says, she even calls him like a beacon of hope and justice for basically the galaxy. Even Luke breaks his own rules sometimes for the greater good. He breaks the law. Yeah, essentially.
And not long after this is one of my favorite space battles, kind of in Legends. Because Thrawn's fleet shows up at Coruscant. The fleet has just recently been given to the command of Senator Garm Belibus. There's a whole thing with him and Mon Mothma reconciling.
She brings him back in. Yeah.
But this is where Thrawn is using his cloaking technology to throw, with tractor beams, asteroids at the planet. Some are real.
I know.
Some are fake. Which is brilliant. So the New Republic ends up thinking there's like 287 potential asteroids in orbit around the planet. And they think, well, we can't drop the planetary shield. We can't let any of these through, even though only like 70 or 80 something, like a much smaller number of them are actually asteroids that were thrown by Thrawn's Star Destroyers, which that's a super cool battle tactic. In not just Star Wars, but other like space sci-fi. I've always been like, well, why don't you just throw giant rocks or asteroids or something at these things. And he does here.
Yeah, and a lot of this is really cool, Mike, because it reminded me of Thrawn's, not just his genius, like sometimes he's just a military genius, but his actual inventiveness, which I like. We see a lot. I mean, he tried this in the first book, right, with the mole miners, an inventive technique of just stealing ships, and the New Republic thought he was coming to destroy them, but he was actually just coming to steal them. And I just like these sort of little things. Good job on Zahn. These are really interesting things we have not seen in Star Wars. You're right, and it's fun.
We will come back and reference this point once we're done with the recap and we're into the analysis part. But basically, from here, the Han and the Falcon get away with Luke and a small crew. They end up going to Wayland, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right. Because they finally pinpoint where Wayland is. And if you guys remember from the first 2 episodes, Wayland is Jorah Sabaoth's place he was hanging out for the Emperor's storehouse, which is described as half a military storehouse, half treasure trove sort of thing. Like the Palpatine has artifacts there. And something we didn't mention, I don't think, but at the end of the second book, Sabaoth actually says, get the special specimen out of the Wayland storehouse and begin the
cloning process or whatever.
The cloning process. That's all he says.
I actually think it's early in this one instead of the end of the second one, or at least that's how it was in the comics order. But yeah, he has like this complicated serial number. He's like, go ahead and start cloning this special one for me.
Right. And that's on Wayland too, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all get to Wayland. So we've got all our heroes plus Mara and Talon, which are kind of our new side heroes here as well. And they basically go to Wayland to confront Sabaoth and the clones. Stop the clones from being made, I guess is the way to call it.
Yeah, this is basically like the clone factory, and they're there to stop that. You stop the clones, you stop the people that are able to control the Katana fleet, basically.
Meanwhile, all this is going on. Thrawn, like Mike said, has Coruscant in the bad situation. So this is very tense. We're with our heroes on the clone planet, and then Thrawn has the Coruscant locked down, and nothing's going to get in or out, and the people are eventually going to starve, which is interesting, or they're just going to be blockaded forever. But let's talk about what happens on the actual clone facility. Like,
well, to give it the accelerated take, there's some natives on the planet that the rebels end up befriending. That sounds a little familiar. They've never done that before.
Third act sort of thing.
And these natives help them get to Mount Tantus, which is the Emperor's storehouse.
So do we think these people were oppressed by Sabaoth at all? I
didn't get that impression from the comic. I got the impression they were more like the Ewoks, which were just ignored.
Right. Which is always a mistake.
And it turned out to be the case in this too, because they helped the rebels, defeat the Imperials on the way to Mount Tantus. And basically, when they got there, that's the boss fight. Luke and Mara are going to fight Jimmy C.
Yeah. Oh, and what's cool in this story is everyone gets their own little moment on this mission.
That's
even
true.
Like R2, he disables the sensors. Just cool stuff like that.
It's not just Luke and Mara fighting Jimmy C. Everybody does something, but really it's Luke and Mara fighting Jimmy C.
So what's really interesting is Luke and Mara start fighting Jimmy C, and Mara starts having these force visions of Palpatine during this. So she's kind of losing focus because she's having these oppressive images of Palpatine screaming at her and telling her to kill Luke Skywalker and stuff. And she's starting, at this point, Mike, she's fully come around to, maybe I don't have to kill Luke Skywalker. Maybe that's an optional thing, which is interesting because this fight starts and Jimmy C starts using lightning on Mara. And Luke actually jumps in and deflects the lightning, absorbs lightning with his lightsaber. And here's what's cool, Mike. This is pre-prequels. So this is, I guess, the first time we've seen a Jedi stopping lightning with their lightsaber.
I think you're right. Yeah.
We obviously see that out of Obi-Wan and Yoda and things like that in the prequels, but anything else? I mean, I don't think that's...
No, I think you're totally right on that. But Jimmy C is not done. He has
No.
he has an ace up his sleeve.
Yeah, he has like a very Bond villain moment. He's like, they start getting the upper hand on him, and Mara starts recovering from the little spat with the lightning, and he's basically calls out his secret apprentice is what he calls him, I think.
Yeah, his secret apprentice that was created like days ago from a
like
cylinder.
weeks ago, Max. Yeah. And the secret apprentice comes out. It's a figure in a dark robe, and it has Luke Skywalker's face.
Oh, Lord.
Dum,
Here
dum,
is where we
dum.
get into one of the dumber parts of this book series. Because this is a clone of Luke Skywalker, referred to as Luke, Luuke. If you look at how Jimmy C's first name, Joris, is spelled, it's Joruus for the first 2 books. So it's like, oh, we have to look at the spelling to determine who is a clone or not.
So you don't get confused or something.
Yeah, which like totally didn't bother me the first time I read it, but now I'm like, okay, whatever.
It seems strange. I don't mind the idea of Jimmy C having a clone of Luke because this whole 3rd book is built around cloning. Like,
I do, but for different reasons that we'll talk about later.
Okay. But it does lend for a cool boss fight here because now we have Jimmy C and Darkseid evil Luke coming at Mara and Luke, and they're basically outmatched at this point. Now, what's really interesting is Mara hasn't really done a lot in the way of Jedi stuff in any of these stories. She's had hints of it, and she's kind of suppressed it. But at this point, Mara gets Leia's lightsaber from her, and is like, we got to go in, me and Luke together. And this is actually, I guess, the
oh my
first time
God,
we
that's
see...
Leia's lightsaber. The comic is so bad, it was not clear whose lightsaber she was
You're like,
getting.
where'd that come from? You're
Yeah.
like, where'd that... No, Leia and Han are kind of, they can't really do anything in this fight, and Mara just takes it from Leia. And which is a cool thing because Leia's still learning, of course, and Mara's way more adept at using it. And you know, we've been giving snapshots of Mara's ability, like Luke saying the way she held the lightsaber and you know, in the jungle and all this stuff, but we've never seen her fully give into her past, her apprentice stuff, basically. Because remember, she wasn't a Sith, she wasn't a Jedi, she was just a Force sensitive who was trained by Palpatine a little bit. And they fight. I mean, when we say that, dark side stuff, light side stuff, lightning.
I'm just going to kind of take the air out of it. Mara gets rid of her visions of Palpatine telling her to kill Luke Skywalker by killing Luke Skywalker.
Right. And that's where we kind of realize in our mind. I like these books a lot, Mike, and we'll talk about the titles later, but I like this one's called The Last Command because I didn't put it together till recently. I always thought it was the last command of the Empire, like as in this is the last, you know, command ship, all the Thrawn stuff. Really, I think it's the last command from Palpatine tomorrow before he died.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
and maybe Zahn means both, which I think is even better title. He means, you know, the Imperial Remnant and Mara dealing with this this moment, and she kind of has a into Force Awakens moment, kind of a reach into the Force sort of thing, and she defeats the clone. A little slow-mo, defeats the clone, and then Luke and her turn on Joruus, and Luke actually tries to tell her to spare Joruus, but she kills him.
Because Luke is a wiener and Mara is practical here.
Luke is Luke, man. He's light side.
That's why I said Luke is a wiener.
No. Really fun fight though overall, despite the goofiness with some of the clone stuff. But I really do like Mara and Luke kind of fighting side by side. And you know, Mara is she's not eloquent with her Jedi stuff. You know, this isn't like her using Force powers and stuff, but she does know her way around the lightsaber, which helps. And we already knew she was a great fighter.
Okay, so this was cool, but Thrawn is not here.
No.
He meets his end at another part of the galaxy in something that...
Let's talk about this. This is good. Something that...
Well, it's really not, though.
I think it's great.
I think it's actually pretty crappy.
Because I mean, surely it's better than space whales, but
I would use another adjectives for space whales, but
yeah. Well, what's really interesting is we didn't mention this, but the Nogri are with Leia now, protecting her, and they actually come with Han, Leia, and Luke to the cloning facility, and they get some cool moments. Just a couple Nogri, not like a whole army, but just a couple of them.
A couple commandos, yeah.
Yeah, and they actually kill some bad guys, and they protect Han and Leia and Luke and stuff. Now, what's really interesting,
Luke and Leia have discreetly subverted the Nogri
to them now
from under
Vader's
Thrawn's
offspring,
control. And
Thrawn doesn't know this.
Is it Rook or Kabarak that ends up doing?
What happens is it's a very cinematic moment, I think, because as the space stuff's going on, one of Thrawn's officers calls out to Thrawn and says, "Sir, we just got report that Wayland has been invaded by Skywalker and Organa Solo, and they were escorted by Nogri commandos." And right as they say that, which is a very cinematic type moment, Ryuk stabs Thrawn in the back.
Or the chest, as the comic portrays.
Yeah, I think it's more he goes around from the back and stabs him in the kind of the stomach. Very ninja-esque.
Thrawn is sitting in his command chair in the comic.
Right. He's swirling. He's drinking the wine. Yeah.
With this, chest stab wound.
Right, and of course we got Thrawn in the all white, starched white uniform, now covered in blood.
Do you remember his last words? Was that a thing in the book?
Rook's?
Thrawn's.
I don't remember Thrawn's last word.
Because in the comic,
I remember
it's pretty explicitly clear, but it was so artistically done. He didn't do that, but he actually says, but it was so artistically done, which is so stupid. It's leaning into that whole Thrawn analyzing art thing. It wasn't artistically done. You got a people that you had subjugated turned from under you, and instead of retreating totally, they actually stayed in their positions to subvert you. That's not so artistically done, like Thrawn says as he's dying. I don't know.
You don't like it? I think Thrawn basically is he's having like a Sherlock Holmes moment where he did not see this coming at all. Not one part of him saw this coming, and all his hubris. And
if he had said something along the lines of, "I did not see that coming," I honestly think that would have been better, because he's been presented as this master tactician this whole time who sees everything. Even though, as my friend Bowen pointed out to me when we were talking about these episodes we were doing,
sure,
Thrawn actually loses every battle he's in these books.
Yeah. He's not as OP as we thought.
Yeah, so he's supposed to be this master tactician who's unstoppable, but he actually loses everything until Coruscant, which is just a delay.
This book, he obviously he won all the battles up to this last battle, so I'll mention that, all the strikes and all the, you're right, but you're talking about this last big battle.
Yeah, so the end of the first book, the end of the second book, he actually ends up losing
the big battles.
Yeah. And I actually think that's part of what makes me like new Thrawn that we see in Rebels better, because he was much more menacing than this guy, and he was much more successful in the short time that we saw him on screen.
Was he successful in Rebels?
I mean,
threatened by him.
He went out in a worse way, which is impressive.
All right, let me take my stab at the artistically done. I'm gonna give you my stab at it. Thrawn betrayed the Nogri, so maybe his betrayal by Ryuk is mirroring that in Thrawn's mind, and that struck a chord with him. Maybe this was the height of the space battle, like they were about to win Coruscant, and Ryuk stabs him at the height of the battle, and maybe Thrawn's like, that's the most artistic thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's the critical tipping point of everything. And maybe, like I just said, maybe he just was impressed because at the moment of his death, everything became clear. Like, oh, Leia Leia is basically the cause of all that, right? And he kind of put all that together, that the Skywalkers foiled him.
But
through saving these people.
That's either stupid or not artistic. It's just tactically
and he smiles.
sound.
And he smiles when he dies.
I don't know that he smiled in the comic. I'd have to go.
It's
back
like a
and look.
smirk in the book. They talk about it's like it says he has like a realization and he smirks or something.
Don't get me wrong. Thrawn is the first great villain post Palpatine that we get in Legends, and he is arguably the greatest still in Legends. But he is often put on this pedestal of being the perfect villain, which I don't think is necessarily the case. But we haven't talked about Luke in a while. So let's jump back to our questions real quick. So Luke doesn't interact with the main cast. I noticed a whole lot in this one until they meet
just
up
Mara
for this
mainly.
Well, I will never call Mara part of the main cast. Don't you do that to me.
She is in this book. But you're right.
We outlined the main cast at the beginning. She's not part of that main cast. She is part of the side characters, which I put Jimmy C and Mara were contributing to his growth here. What does Luke learn in this story? Does he learn anything? Because like I wrote down that he learned his lessons in the last one. That hey, not all Jedi Masters are good, and hey, clones still exist.
Well, something we did skim over, which I think was probably important. Luke learns the truth about Mara more than just that she was the agent, which he did learn earlier on, but he learns why she hates him. The whole Palpatine Vader thing.
That's true.
Mara learns the truth about Luke and Vader. She learns that, like, she didn't know this stuff before. She didn't know Vader was Anakin, and she didn't know Luke was related to Anakin. And then Mara realizes the truth that Palpatine actually manipulated Anakin and tried to kill Luke, and then Anakin killed Palpatine, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think Luke learning the truth about Mara and why she wanted to kill him was a big moment for him. And obviously a lot of it's tied back to Vader and them both being wrong there with, not being on the same page. So that was a big thing, I think, in this story, because they kind of made it a bigger reveal. After Luke rescues her, they learn that about each other.
That is a very good argument, and I award you all the points, sir. Well done.
All the points. And that's what Star Wars comes back to that every time, the Vader stuff. Not every time, but a lot of the time.
Frequently, yeah. So our last question, would Luke's experiences in this story make him different than the Luke we met in The Last Jedi?
I think this is a yes and no.
I think it's a yes more so than any other Legend story we've talked about because of Mara Jade.
Oh, different. Okay, yeah. I still think Luke in The Last Jedi. Well, we'll get to more Mara Jade stuff later. But Mara in this story, which parts are you saying in this story in particular? Because obviously there's going to be more Mara Jade stuff in the future that'll be even more
because
different.
She's introduced here, and I don't know. It's maybe a mix of my just bias of looking back on other stuff, but it's obvious that she's going to be a major character to Luke in more than a side character way,
right?
In some sort of attachment way that Luke doesn't have in The Last Jedi. And actually,
or he's going to train her or something, right?
Is that what they're calling it now? So I did have a question here because, like I said, the comic is bad and it didn't make this clear. So Joris cloned Luke, this evil Luke, from his hand that was cut off on Bespin in Cloud City. And this evil Luke had the original legacy saber. Who ended up with it? Because I actually thought when I read it that Mara ended up calling the Anakin legacy lightsaber to her. Who ends up with that lightsaber? Does Luke still have his green one at the end of the story? Does Mara have this one?
So the story actually ends. The story ends with the Luke and Mara chapter, which I think is great. They're recovering back on Coruscant, starting their uneasy friendship. And Luke actually hands her the Anakin saber, the legacy saber. It says, this belongs to you. I know you reject the Jedi and all that sort of thing, but I want you just to like basically think about it, right? And you obviously know how to handle this, and you deserve it. And she's very apprehensive. What's really interesting is the story ends with them kind of parting ways on Coruscant, but they kind of have this last talk, which I think is kind of fun. And so now she has the blue Luke Skywalker lightsaber, and he has the green, and Leia still has her green one.
Okay, and that's what I thought, but it wasn't super clear at the end of the comics.
We got an interesting tie here too, Mike. You talked about the clone. This is, things always come back in Star Wars, and I'm still wondering where did Maz get Luke's legacy saber from Bespin? Like, how did it get from Bespin to Maz? Right?
Do you think we'll get that answer in 9?
I hope so. Maybe not. Maybe not like the story, but like
I hope so. But it might just be in some like episode 9 tie-in material, maybe.
I think the legacy saber is crucial to the plot of the 9 films. So, and at least a little bit, at least as a symbol. So it'd be, we don't need a backstory, but I'd like to see it.
Although it would be super cool if we got a Maz Kanata novel that she ran that watering hole for 1,000 years.
Right.
If it covered, her back in the prequel days and all of the stuff she did.
So true.
That could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's content for another episode.
I just like how this story ends with Mara finally being rid of her visions of Palpatine. Because like Mike said, she kills this Luke clone and kills Sabaoth. And she's kind of like, in a way, Mike, she rid, in a weird way, she satiated her urge to kill Luke. But at the same time, the actual spiritual win for her was she killed Sabaoth. And to her, he felt like Palpatine. And he kind of was Palpatine as towards the end. Lightning, old crazy man. They're fighting him. So Mara kind of feels like a free woman, and she starts her life over. And her life starts over with Luke handing her this lightsaber. That's pretty cool. And it is a legacy saber, so we're obviously going to see her again.
Yeah. Another note I had made is that in the second book, Dark Force Rising, Luke has a significant brush with the dark side when he's sort of under Jimmy C's mind control. And if we stick to canon, we saw what happens with Luke when he, has that brush with the dark side. He ends up for a split second thinking about killing his nephew. So I just think that would make them different. And the Luke we're seeing here in Legends has been exposed to the dark side a whole lot more than the Luke we see on screen.
Right. And, who knows? The Luke we're going to hopefully learn more about in canon. I'm assuming he's going to experience a lot of dark side stuff. Maybe.
We'll see.
Or maybe not on our journey to episode 9, but maybe when we get to episode 9, Luke will give us stories about that or something.
Well, and there's a difference between learning about the dark side and experiencing brushes with it. That could be a nuanced, thing that we see.
That's true. So as of right now, that's what we got. I really enjoyed that dark side bit in Mindor.
Yeah.
When Luke described how it felt and everything.
And the only other bit I have is that in this story, Luke is much more involved in galactic politics and the military than he is in canon, even though he's not technically a part of it. Like, I think he's not referred to as General Skywalker or anything, but he is still, like, always in these conversations with Mon Mothma, Admiral Akbar, Leia, Borskvalia, and everything.
He's kind of hovering around, yeah.
Which it makes sense for the time when this
Jedi.
was written, but based on what we've read in Shadows of Mindor, and then just in canon in the Shattered Empire comics and other things, how he just separates entirely. I find the separates entirely much more interesting,
right?
Than like, I'm not part of you, but I'm still hanging around.
And he obviously does a lot of that, Mike, and future legend stuff. Though sometimes inconsistent because they brought in other writers who weren't as well versed on this stuff.
That's true.
But when Luke gets vested in the Jedi Academy and everything that follows that, it's basically just Jedi stuff on here on out. And the last series of Legends is fully about that Luke completely separating himself from the New Republic because he's actually exiled. And that's a whole nother thing way off in the future.
Oh man, that might be one I actually have to read because I never have read it before.
And all he does is he goes around and visits all these force planets and stuff. So it's very not military focused. But yeah, it's very interesting. Another side point, Mike, on this story for me is I was pleasantly surprised to reread these and see that Luke didn't really have OP-ness like he does in later parts of the Legends. You know what I mean? Like he felt like the Luke from Return of the Jedi.
I am so proud of myself for just letting that go.
Well, I mean, there's a couple times where it's like, okay, that's a new power or whatever, but most of the time he doesn't even have his lightsaber out, which is great. Most of the time he's not fighting or doing anything crazy. You know, he has issues in these fights. He's not always deflecting the bolts right and stuff. He's getting better at it though. And we obviously saw him have more control in Jedi, and this is 5 years after that. So he's obviously grown, but he's not just OP. We're not saying like crazy stuff. We do see in the story, talking about how does Luke grow in the Force, we see him do the wall run maneuver, sort of.
Yeah.
Which is more athletic.
Nathan Drake style.
Yeah. It's more athletic than anything, but it's of course fueled by the Force. We see him force jump a little bit. And of course, the last story we saw him throw his lightsaber, but nothing outlandish, nothing crazy yet.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
And obviously, it just shows that Zahn was really invested in the original trilogy because he didn't even have the information of the prequels yet, Jedi power wise or things like that, power levels. So he was really keeping it toned down, which I liked. And it's finally revealed in the last book that, yes, Sabaoth is a Dark Jedi, but he's not a Sith. He's just a crazy
He's a crazy
Jedi
clone of what was a misguided Jedi, right?
Right.
Yeah.
A gray-ish Jedi back in the pre-Clone Wars era, which we will find out more in the future.
I think Gray gives him too much credit. I think he's like a dumb Jedi.
Yeah. Or just, I don't know, lost.
Yeah.
So
before we wrap it up, do you have any last thoughts about the Thrawn trilogy at this point? Did you like it as much? Do you?
I liked it as much.
Anything about Luke or? Whatever?
I liked it as much because it was refreshing to read. Let's see, Star Wars books that don't waste time. Like, I know there was a lot in these books and there was a lot of content. This last book is so long, Mike. It's one of the longer Star Wars books. And these were all massive. I mean, if you're doing the Mark Thompson audiobooks, which I did do mainly, I mean, they're 13, 16 hours. I mean, that's intense. But what's really interesting is even the way Zahn uses his side characters, they all have parts to play in the story, and I like them all. Like, I love Pelion. I really like Mara Jade, and I really like Talon. I love Borsk Phalia. I mean, there's just so many characters. General Garm. There's so many characters that are laid in this that are not going away.
Yeah,
and that's important.
No, I agree. So the comic series is terrible. You should read the novels instead of the comics if you can. I will say that it is almost 30 years old. Parts of it haven't aged all that great, but this was the first stuff we got in Legends way back when. So it sort of has earned that, pass or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm confident stuff in this has aged better than stuff from 15 or 20 years ago that we're going to read. You know what I mean?
Maybe. You may absolutely be right. Just one other thing I'd noticed is this, and it's not unique to this 3-story arc. Luke is often, we've talked about this a little before, used as like the perspective for the reader, or he's cast off to the side while things happen around him. And I think that just continues here because he's either off with Mara or kind of off doing his own thing, separated either from the main cast or whatever. It's happening more often than I noticed the first time I read all this stuff.
Okay. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that was these authors taking a page from Luke's arc in Return of the Jedi, maybe.
Yeah, well, no, it happened in the films too. In Empire and Return of the Jedi, he was off
when he's becoming a Jedi, basically.
Yeah,
the first movie, he's not a
Yoda
Jedi at all, so he's with everybody. But he's always got to be doing something else mystical or more contingent on the greater plot with the Force, which is interesting. Or he feels called somewhere to help people, and he doesn't know why, and he goes and deals with that. But I liked a lot of callbacks in this too, Mike. We had Dagobah and a lot with a lot of flashbacks with Palpatine and good stuff, good Luke stuff. And I really like Thrawn's death. Maybe not that phrase with the way you paint it, at least, but I like that Thrawn. I did not want Thrawn defeated in a big epic space battle. I wanted him. I mean, that's perfect death for him.
And we'll just have to disagree on that.
Well, I just think it's like he got Thrawned in a way. Like the thing, like someone thought something through. Ryuk did before he thought it through.
He didn't get Thrawned. It wasn't a master plan.
No,
or anything. I don't know.
Well, the real question is we don't actually talk to Ryuk. We don't talk to Ryuk because he's always with Thrawn. So I want to know how the information about the Nogri people being freed from the Empire and their eyes being opened got to Ryuk, and you know what I mean, and how long he was actually thinking about killing Thrawn.
I've got Rook and Kabrak mixed up a lot in the story. I don't know.
Rook's a lot more menacing.
It's better than Space Whales, but I still don't think that maybe it just hasn't aged well, is how I'll put it. So the other thing we wanted to talk about today is over the Dejaric table. So let's head over there.
Think. You want to make that move. You want to make that move. You made that move, okay.
I guess I'll have to destroy that little guy.
Somehow I never get bored with winning. No, you can't wipe them off. They're holograms. Hey, Chewie, relax. Hey.
Happy General Grievous Day, everybody.
Yes.
The four-armed mechanical menace just made his way to Star Wars Battlefront II today. And lots of people online are rejoicing and swinging around a lot of lightsabers. But not me.
Not you.
Not me.
Not
yet. No, not yet. And I guess we'll talk about why. But have you gotten a chance to experience General Grievous yet?
I've gotten a chance to experience him. I was the bold one or whatever. But okay, so the thing with Grievous is I got online today because obviously I've been excited about Grievous coming to the game for some time. They've delayed him. They've pushed him back, which caused some backlash, but they said he will definitely be out before the end of October. Well, what do you know? Good timing, guys.
Hey, the 30th is still before the end.
Yeah, so I saved my my credits for Grievous, and I bought him today. And tried to jump in Heroes versus Villains and play him. And what do you know, Mike? Every match, somebody already is as auto queued as him somehow.
You can't press X fast enough to select him.
Can't get him. So that's okay. But I did fight against him and fight with him, and it was a blast every time. He is a very fun, interesting character, and he is glass cannon-ish. Like he is crazy damage in the front, but if you get a flank on him, he's really weak. So it's really neat. It's kind of a new thing they're doing in the game where he's weaker in the back and all that. So, but he does a lot of damage up front.
No, that's cool. So I logged in today with the intent of playing as Grievous and saw that I had like 21,000 credits.
Oh,
and then I was like, okay, well, let's see how long it takes me to, get some more credits because he cost what, 35,000?
35,000, yeah.
And I played a few games of Starfighter Assault, a few games of Heroes vs. Villains, and I'd earned like 1,500 credits after like an hour. And I was like, well, this is stupid. I'm never going to play as Grievous. And I turned the game off, and I'm not going to go back to it because there are plenty of other good games out to play. So this is something I wanted to talk about. We know all of the drama that happened at the beginning of Battlefront 2's release with microtransactions and how originally... EA was like, oh, you can just pay to unlock all these characters, pay money to unlock these characters, which I agree it was the right decision to take that away. However, at this point, with
You would just pay.
Well, with as infrequently as I play a year-and-a-half old game, I would much rather pay $5-10 to unlock Grievous, to play him whenever I want. Same with Lando's Money and Falcon in the Starfighter Assault or Hero Starfighters.
That's right.
I would much rather just pay a few bucks to be able to do that right away than to have to sit here and grind on a game that I only play a couple times a month. So I think that's interesting because I agreed with the decision to take the microtransactions away at the beginning, but like a year later, what if you put them in? Would that make money for EA or whatever, that people like me that like aren't going to play the game a whole lot, but oh hey, yeah, like I'd like to play as Grievous for a little bit. Yeah, I'll pay a couple bucks to do that. And after
these are good points.
After a year or whatever, the hardcore fans of the game or whatever have already unlocked everything. They've got all the credits and everything, so the playing field's much more level. What do you think about that?
You got me in a bind here, Mike. I would agree with what you're saying, but I also don't like microtransactions. But I guess I always like the option to be there for people, I guess, if they want to put money into a game.
And I felt the same way when I came up with this, because like I agree that you shouldn't be able to pay your way to win, but when a game is not new and it's been around this long, I would rather myself and other people be able to pay their way in, pay their way. Like, yeah, I would much rather pay $5 or $10 than spend the 8-10 hours grinding on this game that I enjoy, but not for 8-10 hours a month,
right,
to unlock a character.
Right. No, you're right. And sometimes just the option is fine. You know what I mean? Like my number one game is not this. It's Heroes of the Storm by Blizzard. And that game, 95% of the time, I don't spend money. I just play games and I win gold and I buy things with the gold. But every once in a while, there's a new hero or something comes out in the game that I really want to play. That's maybe my play style. And I'll say, release day for that hero, I'm going to drop the $5 or $10 or whatever, because, I've been playing this game for years and they deserve some money. So I think the Blizzard system is really good. I don't know what EA can do. They're probably scared. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, after all like the legal stuff that happened to EA with this game, I understand why they haven't done it. But I was just thinking about microtransactions as a whole, like,
well, don't worry, you can't play Grievous anyways, because everybody's playing him right now.
Because I can't press X fast enough. It just feels much more. It feels much more fair, a year plus down the line of, okay, you don't want to spend the hours to get the in-game currency, pay $5 to get to experience Grievous. You're not going to be as good as the people who've spent the in-game hours anyway. So you'll probably lose, which is the story of me playing Battlefront.
Right, that's me too.
It was an interesting thought I'd stumbled upon today, that I actually would welcome microtransactions back to this game.
All right, yeah, and with Grievous, they've got a lot of stuff coming to the game. He already has another skin. It's the battle damaged Grievous. And they said there's yet to be another unannounced skin. Well, that's pretty obvious what it would be. It'd be Grievous with the cape, which I'm all about. So I'm going to...
Is it a skin or a shell with Grievous?
Yeah, right. His skin's underneath the shell. Whatever's left of his skin. But yeah, so his last skin will be probably the caped Grievous, which is my personal favorite. But I don't know, Mike, maybe some of these events can help you out if you have time. So... to celebrate the release of General Grievous, they are doing these kind of fun events the entire month of November. So starting when you listeners are listening right now, this weekend onward, they're kind of doing a unique thing. So this weekend, as in November 1st through the 4th, they are doing a Clone Wars era playlist to celebrate General Grievous. Every game mode will feature a special Clone Wars map rotation for a limited time. So this is pretty cool. We're mainly going to be at Clone Wars locations. So if you log in this weekend, you'll be playing as either the Republic or the Confederacy of systems, and you'll be hopefully maybe playing Grievous on one of those maps, which would be cool. The following weekend, November 9th through 11th, they're adding a thing called Fast Spawn event, and they're adding a fast instant spawn feature to the game, and the blast and strike modes for the entire weekend. The spawn timer is going to be reduced to 0 seconds, Mike. So essentially, you're just going to be playing constantly. If you remember Halo back in the day when you could turn the spawn counter down, that sort of thing. That's what they're doing for a whole weekend in select modes. And then the following weekend, November 16th through 18th, this is my personal favorite event. They did this a month or two back, and it was the most fun I've ever had playing this game. It's called the Heroes Unleashed weekend. During this weekend event, heroes can be unlocked for 75% of their normal battle point cost, with up to 8 per side playing simultaneously. So what does this mean? This means if you get in a Galactic Battleground map, so say the one I played on that particular weekend was Hoth, the heroes cost nothing, as in battle points. They cost 75% less, and you can have up to 8 per side.
Oh, so you can have like 8 Han Solos running around?
No, you still have to follow their cardinal rule of not having the same hero.
Oh, okay, I see. So 8 different heroes per side.
Right, but it was so awesome. So when I did this on the Weekend Unleashed, it was by chance. I joined in. I was like, why are there so many heroes? What is happening in this game? And we were storming the Rebel base on Hoth, and I was Vader, and I had 7 other Imperial villains with me. So I had like Maul, Phasma, Kylo Ren. It's really cool. Something you don't see in the game often. It's obviously less controlled and more chaotic matches, because then you're coming down to people's skill with heroes, and you're going to go on these crazy kill streaks and stuff that wouldn't normally happen in the game, but it's super fun. And so I'll be definitely playing that weekend. And then the following weekend, which will be Thanksgiving weekend, November 23rd through the 25th, they're doing the same thing, but with vehicles. So battle points required to unlock vehicles is reduced by 75%. So it's the same sort of thing, Mike. Just every match is just full of vehicles.
I will for sure be playing that event, because whenever I play Galactic Assault, I'm just looking for the vehicles to commandeer.
I rarely get in them. The only one I can drive with any sort of competency is the Trade Federation tank. I need to learn how to do the other ones, though. And then the last weekend of November, which is November 28th through December 2nd, this is what I'm excited for, Mike. Galactic Assault will now feature a Geonosis-only playlist for the first 5 days, which they're calling a Battle of Geonosis Marathon. So this is the brand new map, which is the Battle of Geonosis, which will be the biggest map ever introduced to the game. It's going to be that giant scene we see at the end of Attack of the Clones, I'm assuming. And they're just going to marathon that. So if you queue up for Galactic Assault mode, you're only going to play that map, which is really cool.
So as much as I bag on Attack of the Clones for being a bad movie, and it's a really bad movie, I actually am really excited about this video game mode.
I think everyone likes that battle. At least playing that battle seems really fun. The idea of being on the clone or droid side. And obviously Grievous is going to be out there, which is going to be awesome. Kind of alt history thing.
And it hasn't even really mattered how bad the video game you're playing in is either. People still enjoy that battle. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an iconic battle. So that's going to be fun. And I just like they're going to marathon it. So we're probably going to only play that mode that weekend, just so I can experience a new map and learn it. And then the same time that's going on, Mike, they're also doing a double XP event. So during this Geonosis thing, the entire weekend, they are doing a double XP event and dropping Obi-Wan, I think, on December 2nd.
Oh, man.
And more Clone Wars Clone Trooper skins as well. So this is a big weekend. So that weekend in particular, that last weekend of November to the first couple days of December, they really want people to experience Grievous, Obi-Wan, new Clone Trooper skins, and basically the Battle of Geonosis map.
And some of those Clone Trooper skins are available now. I saw in my crate menu that if I had even more credits, I could unlock those skins.
Yeah, that's not worth the credits when Grievous is around now.
I still don't have Lando's Falcon, and I play Starfighter more than the other one.
Yeah, you need that Falcon too. I don't, of course, have that. But So this is gonna be a fun time for this game. This is probably the height of this game in over a year. So this is kind of a big deal, and they're finally doing all the things they promised, and they're going to be coming out. And of course, in December we're going to start getting. In January we're going to be getting Dooku and Anakin as well. So this is kind of leading to that as well, which is great.
Super exciting stuff. I will
Big
just
stuff.
have to bite the bullet and play a lot more, or convince someone at EA to come around and let me just pay for this stuff or something.
Dude, the double XP weekend is insane. I played that 2 weekends ago. It's probably helped me get Grievous faster because I was at 30,000 and I got 5,000 really quickly playing a couple matches. It accelerates everything.
I'll have to put these on my calendar.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. And the last thing I'll mention is Grievous is very flavorful with how he is in the movies. He's got a lunge forward jab attack. He's got the slow walk forward, spin all the lightsabers, deflect all bolts, and do crazy damage up front, but he's really weak in the back. And then his last ability, which is so Grievous, is the runaway spider move really fast. So I was actually playing hero mode earlier, and I was Luke, and I had a Rey on my team, and we were chasing a Grievous around Jabba's palace for like 5 minutes because he kept doing that run mode because he was the target, and he's like, I don't want to die. And it's very thematic, cowardly running away like Grievous does when he gets hurt and running away. So that was fun. So I'm excited to do more Grievous. I will give you guys a report in the future when I spend some more time with him. I think I'm going to be playing a lot of him, hopefully.
That's awesome.
He is now in the arcade mode. So if you're having trouble queuing up with him in the online modes, go play arcade mode. He's there.
Do you have to unlock him for arcade mode, or is that my way?
I am maybe not.
We'll find out. I'll find out when we're done recording.
You didn't have to. You didn't have to. Remember on the other ones, right? Like Palpatine and stuff. Like you could play Palpatine in the arcade mode, like on his special mission. But if you didn't have him in regular mode yet, you had to earn him. I don't know.
That might be the only way I play this Grievous. Awesome. All right.
Oh, and he's voiced by Matthew Wood, so
yeah. So
I'm
it's
nerding
all
out.
It's all authentic and it's great.
And they've actually added lines from Clone Wars, from Revenge of the Sith, and new lines.
Oh, what have they added? And
yeah, they've added all those, but they've also added some of his dialogue from Clone Wars, which is really neat, and new dialogue. I was playing a match today, and it was the heroes mode, and people were dying around Grievous, and Grievous was screaming, "I'm surrounded by idiots."
How many times a game does he go, General Kenobi?
You are a bold one. Yeah, I need that meme every day when I wake up. I look at it. So
that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so that does it for our trip to the Dejarik table here. Next, we're going to talk about Star Wars Resistance. So, hey, there's a new Star Wars show on the Disney Channel called Star Wars Resistance, and 3 or 4 episodes are available. I don't know if the 4th one has like aired yet, but I was able to watch it on like the app or whatever.
I have not seen it yet. The 4th episode.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. We've talked just very briefly about Star Wars Resistance on previous episodes. But it's, got the new art style. It's in a time period that I am much more interested in than, say, Rebels was set. Not that Rebels didn't have some interesting stories, but that gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens interests me a lot more.
It's a big gap.
Yeah.
It's a big gap.
It's a huge gap, and we've actually got we've already gotten some familiar characters in Poe, BB-8, and Phasma in there. But yeah, let's just start with some general thoughts. I so far like these first 3 or 4 episodes of Resistance better than I like the first 3 or 4 episodes of Rebels. What do you think?
That's fair enough. Yeah, I might agree with that statement as well. Zeb was featured pretty heavily in the first couple episodes of Rebels, and I really liked Zeb. I really did not like in Rebels that the last season he basically did nothing. He just sat at the base. That made me really angry. But
he was planning his and Callus's wedding.
That's right. I'm a huge Steve Blum fan, and I was sad to not see him there. So yeah, I'd say I like it as much or more than the first beginning of Rebels.
I feel like the animation is much
I like
more
the animation
consistent. Yeah, like the first few episodes of Rebels. If you go back to that first season, that first
I don't
half
like
is
it.
pretty chunky, pretty rough. And our hero Kaz is just as annoying as Ezra.
Yeah, maybe a little bit less annoying. Like I said,
A little bit.
an episode or two ago.
Maybe just because his hair is not always in 0G like Ezra's hair was at the beginning of Rebels.
Yeah, that was weird.
It totally
weird
was.
animation choice.
It looked like a living thing on top of his head. But
Simba.
As far as the style of animation for Resistance, I actually really like it. I'm a huge fan of Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and I basically feel like the Resistance is Star Wars animated in that same style.
Definitely, yeah. That Team Fortress 2 cell shading, video game style. The Telltale games, story-driven games borrow a lot from this style as well.
Pour some out for one's homies. Speaking of Telltale,
what a great time to mention that. That's sad. I hope those employees get jobs. But
I wish Telltale had been able to pull off a Star Wars game. Honestly,
that would have been really fun. Just a pure story game. But the animation's fun. The racing's fun. It's cool to see a little bit of First Order stuff because I still feel like after 2 movies, I still don't know the First Order like I knew the Empire after the first 2 movies. That's just my opinion.
We do get like tidbits every episode into either like the machinations or the workings of the First Order. There's a little bit with Phasma, and then Red Phasma. His name escapes me right now.
Right.
But he flies the red advanced
Jax.
TIE Interceptor. Yeah, Carter Jax, whatever his name is.
Close enough.
But overall, I've enjoyed the first 4 episodes. There is some younger audience or kid like skew to the main story, but you always get a little bit more into the larger universe, which I think is great.
Yeah, and the story's not as kiddie as I thought, especially the pilot episode.
Yeah,
it really wasn't that kid focused. I was expecting kind of some over the top silliness, and none of that really happened. So, I don't know what people's fears were.
For our listeners out there that have kids, it is geared towards a younger audience, but it is still not Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
No, not appropriate for that age group. Yeah.
And we've already had some great like guest stars on there. We've already had Oscar Isaac and Gwendolyn Christie, and Elijah Wood randomly showed up in the 3rd episode.
I love it. Yeah, I can't get enough Elijah Wood these days. He's doing such weird stuff. I love it.
And the 4th episode finally introduced Dr. Turk, Donald Faison as Hype Faison, which is fantastic because I've always loved Gary the Stormtrooper from back in his Robot Chicken days.
Yeah, man. Everything comes around in Star Wars. That's what we're learning. They take what they like and they bring it back.
In addition to Bobby Moynihan and Jim Rash. Jim Rash of Community and Bobby Moynihan of SNL and now DuckTales. They were in one of the first 2 or 3 episodes as like the shopkeepers. So there's some great talent in this show.
Yeah, we were watching that. I had no idea they were in the show. And we were watching the show, me and my wife, and I said, that's those 2 guys right there. And she's like, really? You can tell by their voice? I was like, yes.
I've got like this Jim Rash / Dean Pelton auditory like radar just because I've watched all of Community so much over.
Yeah.
He's great. He's so great.
No, that was perfect. Those were cool characters too. And I like the representation of alien races, and I like the I don't know, we're seeing like different sizes and heights of like Rhodians and stuff, things we've just never seen, like we're seeing like, there's the Neimoidian guy, and I mean, just really cool stuff. It's world building, and I like it.
And we're getting great representation of non-aliens as well. Like,
definitely,
Phasma might be the only white person we've seen in the show because we don't know about under the armor of a bunch of other people. I guess some of the other racers that are not considered main characters might be, but Kaz is Asian, Tam is black. It's great.
There's Phasma and Leia, I guess.
Oh, you're right. That shitty person who did Leia's voice was in there. I totally blocked her out.
I still don't know that full story, but we'll get there one day.
Oh,
Um,
man.
I just gotta
Crap,
believe.
there is a dark spot on this series.
I'm not gonna trigger you. Sorry. Complete accident.
So overall, I've enjoyed the series so far. I'm going to keep watching. I'm hoping that it takes like a mid-season turn where episodes start linking into a more overarching narrative, kind of like Rebels did.
Yeah, that's what I want.
But we'll see. This, who knows if this is planned to go 4 seasons like Rebels? It might just go a couple to tide us over until episode 9 comes out. Who knows?
Well, let's talk about a poll we did with this show, Mike.
Yeah, so we put out a poll asking for your favorite new character in Star Wars Resistance, and we did put the caveat on there that there was a wrong answer, and none of you that participated said the wrong answer, which is great. I was surprised to see that Tam got 0 votes, because I think she's pretty cool. Yeager was actually our winner with 46% of the vote.
He's
Niku,
cool.
who I like and am annoyed by at the same time, which I think is the point, was
Jar
in
Jar.
second place.
Mm-hmm.
Like a more effective Jar Jar, yeah.
Right.
And then Bucket came in third with 16%, which shame on all of you who didn't vote for Bucket.
Bucket.
Because if there was a right answer, it is Bucket. But nobody answered Kaz, which is the wrong choice.
That is probably definitely the wrong choice. No, Yeager's great, man. I see why he's on top. He's the grizzled old ace pilot. He's just fulfilling that mentor role too, which is cool. And of course, great casting.
Oh yeah. That voice actor has done a whole lot. Who I recognize from way back when we were little kids, and my dad watched Jag all the time.
Oh yeah, my dad.
Yeah,
too.
you remember that? Okay, you remember that show? I was afraid I'd be the only person to like make that super deep callback. I was like, oh,
he's been in a lot, man. This guy's been in a lot.
Oh, he's been in so much, but Jag is the first thing I remember him in, because I'm like, oh, hey, it's the dude from Jag that my parents used to watch when I was like 9 years old.
He's left Jag way behind. So yeah, my parents I remember all those shows back then that my parents watched, that I watched with them sometimes. Jag, The Adventures of Lewis and Clark, or whatever. So Lois and Clark. Let me misspeak, but I mean, the Sword of Superman show, the Sword of Superman show. A lot of weird '90s stuff.
Yeah, and we actually had a comment on this poll by my buddy Scott. He said, I was really into Torah, but she hasn't done too much after that first episode. Failing that, I guess the Red Imperial Ace. So, yeah, Torah was that racer that Kaz went up against in the first episode and lost to, but didn't die against. So I guess we can call that a win. And I know they've named the Imperial Ace in the red armor and the red ship. His name escapes me right now.
Carnage Jax.
Yeah, we'll just go with Carnage Jax. That's
for now.
Knowing Scott, he will actually agree with that as well.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah. But that's just kind of our fresh take on Resistance, guys. Keep following it at home. We're gonna keep following it. We're gonna mention it in the future. It's new Star Wars content, so we're gonna talk about it. But that's about as deep as we're gonna get right now.
Yeah. So that'll do it for today's episode here at the Canon Cantina. Just give you some of our outro information. We have a Discord server now. You can find it linked in all of our social media. And if you hop on that and chat with us, you can give us questions to answer, topics to talk about. And we just need a couple more players interested in playing the Star Wars RPG. I was outlining that for another player on the channel earlier today.
Right.
If we can get probably 2 more people interested in playing that, we will run a super casual Star Wars RPG. Experienced gamers or people who've always heard about RPGs that are interested in trying it out. Basically, we'll tell a Star Wars story together at a casual pace, and I'm excited to see how this experiment goes. Also, if you join our Discord server, we'll give you some free swag. You don't have to be a patron at a certain level for however long. You just hop on the Discord server and chat with us, and give us your contact info, and we'll send you some free Canon Cantina stickers.
I love it. and get on that group, guys. So just if anything, just to chat with us. Mike is on there as the Canon Cantina GM, and I am on there as Ian Malcolm, which is my online name everywhere. So if you ever see Ian Malcolm anywhere, that's me. And I have a General Grievous portrait, I'm pretty sure. So if you want to talk, we're there.
Nice. So in addition to Discord, you can connect with us on our Facebook page. We're on Twitter at the Canon Cantina. I'm not as active there as I should be, but I try to do something every day. We're also on Instagram at Canon Cantina, and Jesse does more there because I'm an old man who doesn't understand Instagram.
That's right. And we also both have something I haven't mentioned before, Mike, but
I'm like 8 months older than Jesse. And somehow that's enough.
Yeah, it's like it used to be the only social media I used till podcasting. But something I've always wanted to mention, but I always forget, and I feel like it's worthwhile, Mike, because we talk a lot on our personal Twitters as well. Caution, dangerous curves ahead sometimes with Mike's, but but if you've always wondered who sometimes is talking on our Canon Cantina Twitter,
if you would like to see me tell the president which celestial body to run straight into, you can follow my personal Twitter.
Mike's Marvel's gonna fire you, Mike.
Dang it!
you can find me at Jesse Aiken. So JESSEEAKIN. So there's some E's there in the center, and Mike's is at Pirate Rodeo. And that's just if you have some Star Wars related question that might not be for the show, but if you just want to talk to me about how Thrawn's death was artistic, away from Mike, we can do that.
Or if you want to talk to me about how the Michael Bay Transformers movies are better than the old, no, I can't even complete that sentence. I was just trying to trigger Jesse.
Yeah. I got my Shockwave masterpiece right here. I'm looking right at him. But yeah, if you ever want to talk to me about Transformers, I'm there. I'm ready. But, or, horror movies or film, because I actually use my personal Twitter a lot to talk about more than just Star Wars film and things like that as well. So
I'll just go ahead and say Jesse's personal Twitter is much higher quality content than mine. I just basically tell the president where to shove it every morning. The Canon Cantina is also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and we are also on Spotify. Huge thanks to everybody who's finding us on Spotify. That audience just keeps growing every week. We super appreciate it.
Yeah, and please keep help spreading the word of our shows, guys, like you guys are doing. Keep subscribing, keep rating, keep reviewing. Keep giving us those iTunes reviews, Apple Podcasts reviews. I'm going to return next week to the review corner where I read you guys' reviews. We just haven't looked at it in a while because we've had some pretty hefty content to get through, and I didn't want to keep you guys any longer on these episodes. But we're going to go to that pretty soon, and I'm going to read more of you guys' reviews that you left us on the show, which I really appreciate. So if you want a review read on the show, leave us a review. As Mike said, it can be encouraging, it can be funny, it can be down-putting, whatever. I'll read it. So it could be.
If it's a 1 star, it better be funny. That's my only warning.
Yeah, so we really appreciate that. You want to join us next week as we release a special episode, Mike? You want to mention what that is? I mean, I think we can now. We hinted at it with the Zach episode. We hinted at it.
Oh yeah, in our notes I just put something else because we hadn't quite decided before we started recording. But next week we will release our episode 8, The Last Jedi Listen Along commentary. So we recorded this like a month and a half, 2 months ago,
something like that,
when I was back in Tulsa. I'm interested to go back and listen to this.
I am too.
In the context of the things we've learned about Luke and our exploration of canon and legends since then. And just because that might be the most recent time I've actually watched The Last Jedi, and I know we talked about it with Zach Bunn a few episodes ago. So it should be interesting. So we won't have any like brand new news for you next week, but we will be putting up an episode next Thursday. Our The Force Awakens, not The Force Awakens, our The Last Jedi listen along commentary.
Right. And just keeping you guys informed of you guys that are reading with us at home, we will return to the Marvel universe of the canon Star Wars stuff on Luke after The Last Jedi commentary. So that'll be the following week. And we're going to cover the Marvel, The Screaming Citadel, and maybe some Star Wars Marvel Rebel Jail stuff as well, just to keep going forward with that original trilogy Marvel Luke storyline.
That's right. We've done 3 weeks back to back to back of Legends in a very important Legends story.
Yeah.
We're going to spend some time back in canon after our The Last Jedi episode.
Yeah. So please join us for those next 2 weeks, guys. This should be really fun and a change of pace after this in-depth look at Thrawn and the Thrawn trilogy. We will obviously reference Thrawn more in the future, and we'll cover more things with Luke because a lot of books, Mike, this point on Legends are going to piggyback off of what this book did with the characters. And
that's right. These three sort of set the stage for the old Legends universe.
But that's really it today, guys. We guys hope you enjoyed this special trilogy of episodes. And let us know what you thought about the Thrawn trilogy. Let us know what you thought about Luke's growth and Luke's boss fight. Also, let us know what you thought about Thrawn's death. Is it bad? Is it great? Was it, were you just in shock? Tell us.
Do you wish you could pay $5 to just play as General Grievous like I do?
Yes. I would pay $5 every time.
I don't know that I'd pay 20, but I would pay 5 and they can maybe get me on 10. Anyway, we hope you've had a good time here in the Canon Cantina. Cheers, everybody.
May the Force be with you.
Boring conversation anyway.